Welcome to Wisco Dice. Hey, yo, folks, I am your host, the Conzi with the Most, and I am joined today by...
Hey, I'm Suzanne, and today we have special guests on the show with us. We have Matt, Ethan, and Jeremy from Sophisticated Cerberus to tell us about their new game and what else is going on with Sophisticated Cerberus Games.
So this is episode 126 of the Wisco Dice Tabletop Gaming Podcast. Today is July 25th, 2024, and today we're going to talk Sprocketforge, GenCon, the Stifling Dark, and more. We've got our friends from Sophisticated Cerberus Games on, so let's get to it and hear from them. That's what we're here for. Let's roll right into it. Thanks, team, for coming back on the show. Jeremy, Matt, and Ethan, you want to just start with a quick round of introductions and tell us who Sophisticated Cerberus Games is?
You bet. We'll do a quick round of intros, and then we'll dive into Sprocketforge. Thanks for having us on, by the way. So I am Matt, one of the three of the Sophisticated Cerberus members. I'm from Minneapolis, but originally from Appleton, where we all come from. I'll pass it off to Ethan.
Yep, I'm Ethan, and I'm in Appleton yet. One of the only three that didn't leave Appleton. So go ahead. For now.
Yeah, we're trying to work on that. So I'm Jeremy, also from Appleton, currently living in Minneapolis. Happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Return back to Wisconsin, a full three-headed Cerberus in the state, and skip that Minneapolis side. We don't need you in Minnesota.
I agree. I fully agree.
You guys have a new game coming out called Sprocketforge. It's on Kickstarter right now, and we see you've reached your funding goal already, so congrats on that. But can you tell our listeners what Sprocketforge is all about?
Yeah, you bet. So essentially you're this magical artificer, more of so a factory of them. So you're running as like goblins or kobolds or gnomes, and you have literal gears that are moving around and producing this mana for you, as well as some other special effects. You're going to use that mana to fulfill orders, and these orders are how you're going to earn renown. But whenever you use mana to fulfill stuff, you actually pollute your machine, and so the noble houses of Sprocketforge will kind of start to get angry at you if you have too much pollution, and stop giving you bonuses if you want to petition them for more help if you have too much pollution in your machine. So it's a fun little balancing act of producing mana, keeping your machine clean, and also making sure you got a good flow of orders coming in.
Yeah, well, and you said there's gears in this, and that's one of the things that caught my eye looking at the Kickstarter and seeing some early prototypes of this. Can you tell us a little bit of what these gears are used for and how they play into the game?
Each person has a set of 5 gears on their factory board. In those gears, you can set enchantments and seals, which are kind of like upgrades for your enchantments. And that's how the enchantments and the seals are how you actually getting all of your mana or your special, like other special kind of abilities. But every round, the gears are going to rotate one space. So you have to, your factory is constantly turning around. And so you have to really think about what orders you've got, and then look at your gears and see like, okay, how are they going to line up next round, or maybe 2 or 3 rounds in the future. So it really rewards people who can kind of look at what's coming up and plan out their couple turns coming up here.
Looking at it and being backers ourselves, because day one backers was definitely a thing we had to make sure we clicked and got this. We've been previewing this thing for a long time. With these gears, and every player's got 5 of them, they're in all of the different options to add upgrades to those gears and enhance their capabilities. Can you tell us a little bit about that process in play testing it to ensure that you hit balance?
Absolutely, yeah. So we signed the game from the local designer Ananda Gunaratna. So we met him at Protospiel here in Minneapolis, 3 years ago? I want to say 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we played it and we loved it right off the bat. So it was very different back then, and there was I think at that point it had a public market, so like you would complete the orders as soon as you could versus reserving them like you do today. I think you had 6 gears back then, maybe. There was upkeep on the gears, like if you didn't pay the resources, the gear was gone, you couldn't produce, and so it was a very different game back then. And it's gone through many iterations over the years as we kind of, as Ananda play tested it, and then once we signed it, as we play tested and developed it with Ananda to get to where it is today. And I think one of the biggest things that kind of really made the game click was the follow actions we introduced. So whenever you are taking an action, every other player gets to take a similar but less powerful action. So that way you have to kind of pay attention to what your neighbors are doing, because if I produce, then Matt and Ethan could grab a wild mana, or they could rotate their gears if they're out of position. So I think that was like a breakthrough we had. I forget how long ago that was, 6 months, 9 months ago.
Yeah, it's actually a proto-spiel.
Yeah, that's right. So like, proto-spiel is awesome. If you have one in your local area, I highly suggest checking it out, even if you aren't a designer, because you can go and just play awesome games like this and help shape the future of those games. So it's been through a lot of iterations, lots of balancing tweaks, but a lot of that was just done through conventions, play testing with friends, family, and then people who backed our previous games as well.
Very cool. We love Protospiel here in Madison. We don't design games, but we love going and play testing them. So yes, those of you listening, find a local one. That'd be a great idea. The theme for this one is so very different than your first game, Stifling Dark. How did you end up with this completely different theme, very different mechanics, whole different play style than your first one?
It's so much lighter and friendlier, and yet seems
no
like
one
an
stalking
intensely
you.
strategic game where you're having to pay attention and make sure you don't give your opponents too much of a bonus when you're taking your action. So that's crazy. Where did this theme come from?
Yeah, I mean the theme came from Ananda when he was originally designing the game. We found him at Protospiel, but the reason we brought it on, we were after Stifling Dark, we really had a lot of internal discussion on if we wanted to just make more horror themed board games or just get into games that have really cool systems going on and just sort of unused, not very popular, and just not very many well seen systems. Like Gears, you kind of see in the background of some games. Some things do it, they're never at the forefront. And so we decided to roll the route of let's get into publishing and bring this really cool idea of Gears and put it at the front of a game. And it's not just a gimmick, but it's like the core of the game. And so that's kind of where it came about. And then we started talking about theming and came up with a fantasy and magical theme after we signed it and everything. But that's kind of how it came about and how we branched very far away from the horror heavy theme.
Yes, very far away from it. So, but they both look, great. And I did notice this game has a solo mode on it. And I have been playing a lot of games solo lately. So I'm curious, how does this solo mode kind of work? It sounds like you're doing something based on what your opponents are doing, but how does that translate to solo play?
Yeah, so this one, it's not like point attack or anything. We didn't want to do any solo mode that was just really basic. Like if we're going to put a solo mode in there, we want to do something that's like an actual solo mode, right? So this one, it's got like a robot that you're playing against. It's got, it flips over a card every turn, and then based on that, it's doing a couple actions, and it's got its own board in front of it that it kind of moves its mana around on there, completing orders in a certain order. It's got its own player aid, but it's not like a full factory board either. So you're not just playing two players either. We did try to preserve all of those kind of player interactions as much as we could. You can still like transmute from the robot, and you follow what it does, and it follows what you do as well.
Ah, very interesting. I'm excited to play the solo mode of this. If I can, get it out of the box without Cones having to be right there playing with me.
These days, it seems like you want to play more games than me, and I'm somewhere around 200 plays this year. So your appetite for games is quite large. So, so there are some. Just looking at the Kickstarter, and I went through and read the whole thing as I was trying to decide what backer level and which add-ons I wanted to add in. There were a ton of really cool options for upgrades for this game, which I was surprised to kind of see on the day one release. Can you guys tell us a little bit about the upgrades that you've already announced and included as options to get that you're planning to offer? Because let's face it, those Metal Gears tokens are pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah, they are amazing. So we weren't sure if we're going to be able to make that work because it's a ton of metal. Like when you think about games that have like a metal first player coin or something, or even just some metal coins, but like this is 25 full Metal Gear Solid, one might say. Thank you. Matt and Ethan are going to yell at me for that one afterwards. So we have the Metal Gears. That's going to be one of our big ones. We'll have those at GenCon. So we got a sample from the factory. They work really well. They're nice and chunky. They're like 5 pounds worth of metal. We'll have those at GenCon so people can come take a look at them and see them in person. So those are the big ones. We also have resin resources. So like think like the Scythe custom resource pack type of resources. So those are kind of the different pledge levels we have. And then we unlocked some custom cut mana cube resources as one of our stretch goals, as well as we're about to hit the upgraded cards, so thicker 310 GSM cards. And then I don't want to spoil too much, but we will have a stretch goal a little bit down the road here with linen finish on the cards as well. So looking at getting some component upgrades, and those apply to every pledge level. So whether you have the base pledge, the Metal Gear pledge, the resin pledge, or the all-in pledge, those stretch goals will apply to every pledge level as well.
Linen finish on the cards. We need to get you guys up to that level for sure.
Everybody back it. Come on, let's go. Chop, chop.
I want the linen finish. So you've got all these wonderful components that are with the game, whether it's the base game or the unlocked stretch goals and upgraded levels. But for storing them, what are you doing component organizer wise? It was awesome in Stifling Dark. Want to hear that it's going to be awesome here also?
Yes, we are indeed going to have a nice insert for the game. Now, our main designer that did Stifling Dark, he had like a kid this year and he wasn't able to do it for this game, but we actually did find another person to do it, and we will have little trays for all of the enchantments, the gears, the seals, and then like a bin for the mana, basically. And all the card slots will fit as well. So we'll have everything really nicely laid out in there for everybody.
Very nice. I find that makes it so much easier to get a game to the table when I can just pull it out and find everything than trying to sit and spend an hour opening plastic baggies.
It spoils your fun of having to 3D print something, but your printer is a little got a bit of a backlog. So thanks for helping her out and saving her from having to print an insert for one game.
Yes, or even just try and design one. So yes, I think that's awesome. But
so that's Sprocketforge. I think we'll come back to it a little bit, but it is available on Kickstarter right now as we're talking. If you're catching this after August 15th, I'm sure there are going to be late back options as well as ways to then get this in retail. I've definitely seen really cool to see your first game. So the Stifling Dark at store shelves. It was awesome seeing you here locally, walking in the store and go, oh, hey, I know the guys who made that game. And it was great being a part of that process, telling everybody that they should get a copy. The Stifling Dark, your first game, much different game than what Sprocketforge is, horror themed. This is a game that people can get now, correct? It's still available. You still have copies for it. How can people get the Stifling Dark if they wanted a copy, besides catching you at GenCon?
Sure. So yeah, it is in distribution. So a lot of retailers do have it. I obviously don't know which retailers in particular do. You'll have to just check with your local stores, but it is out there, and I think we do have a listing on Amazon as well. If you want to look there. But obviously, we would prefer you go to your local stores if possible.
Always support your local game store. With Stifling Dark, it's a one versus many, where one person is playing like this adversary character, which is my favorite role, by the way. Obviously a much different theme, much different mechanic structure, but the flashlights being this like cool interactive component. Sprocketforge, you got cool interactive components. And I think when we talked the last time about the Stifling Dark and you were getting into, starting to talk about Sprocketforge, you talked about having this kind of like one of the things you wanted to try to find was these cool mechanics, cool tangible components in board games. Knowing that that's kind of a trend for you guys, is that something we can expect to see in future projects?
Yep. So we have our next game, which hasn't been announced yet, but has been shown at Origins. It will be officially announced at Gen Con, has a similar unique component in it. I won't spoil it too much, but there's still a pretty unique component in that game. It's super fun. So make sure you stop by Gen Con, booth 2566, and check it out. And I won't promise that every game will have that. So we are going to, that is kind of our central thing for a lot of our bigger games, but we are looking to branch out a bit more. So we had a lot of discussions, as Matt said, about like, what do we want to do after Stifling Dark? Like, do we want to stick with horror? Do we want to like diversify so we're not just pigeonholed into horror games? And so we're continuing that conversation with like, how do we build Sophisticated Cerberus' brand to get more games out there? So I won't promise that it'll be every single game we ever make, but our next game will also have a pretty unique component in it as well.
Imagine that that's a logistics and cost challenge with every game having like really wild, awesome components.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how much does it? I mean, I guess I don't know. Does it affect shipping to have 25 pounds of metal gears per game when you're trying to get it from the factory to your various distribution hubs? That's got to be a big cost challenge.
Yeah, it actually isn't terrible freight-wise, and it actually wasn't as bad as we thought, like parcel shipping-wise either, because the biggest expense for fulfillment is more so just shipping a package. The weight certainly affects that. The good news is with the gears, this is not very big, so you're billed by the weight or the dimensions, whichever one's greater based on a formula the carriers use. And so with the gears, it's obviously the weight, not the dimensions, but just shipping a package in the first place is like expensive, and then as you add pounds onto it, it doesn't get that much worse comparatively. So it kind of balances out. Once you hit a couple pounds, it certainly adds some cost, but not as much as you think.
Good news for backers. So make sure you upgrade to getting the steel gears for Sprocketforge. I remember you said how much the weight was, and I wanted to make sure I asked that question because that would be a concern of mine in getting upgraded.
So you've got Sprocketforge coming out, and Conzi mentioned briefly that about Stifling Dark and how much we've really enjoyed that game. And I heard that there's some changes coming out and there's some expansions and everything. Can you tell us a little bit about what we can expect with Stifling Dark?
Yeah, so we definitely plan on doing some new adversaries and new maps as an expansion. So stay tuned for that. But essentially what we're doing is we're going through our rules and going through our game and really boiling down some of the tokens, and essentially what we want to do is a lot of the gameplay will remain the same, but we're going to just streamline some of the tokens, so you can just few of these token sets here and there, throw them straight away. Won't need them anymore. That's the goal when we're done, and also just simplifying some iconography, just to make things flow a lot easier. Because at the core, the game itself is like a pretty straightforward game to play, and so if we just streamline some of those tokens and rule sets a bit, it'll be really easy to pick up while you still have a really good and heavy strategy game. And other things we're talking about adding. Things will, if you stop by our booth, you can definitely see a sneak peek of. Is if you're, well, I don't want to spoil it too much, but if you're a fan of painting, you'll be excited. So we're gonna be dropping some images after Gen Con, probably October timeframe, and get things rolling in our Discord in that realm.
A fan of painting, like the act of painting pictures, painting walls, or just admiring paintings?
Definitely you're an active painter. In
Okay.
the sense that you have certain pieces you can paint.
Oh, I'm very
You have
intrigued.
my attention.
Yeah, Conzi loves to paint, and I love games that are kind of have that pretty beautiful, like, hey, this is artwork I want on my wall type feel. So yeah,
we will stop by and definitely check that out.
Awesome.
We've hinted at Gen Con. We know it's this little convention. I don't know. Maybe people have heard of it. Maybe they haven't. It's in Indianapolis. There's a few people that show up for it, right? I mean, it's not that big. But we're just a few days away while we're recording this. I think actually 7 days. I think 7 days. Probably less for you guys because you got more you probably have to head out a couple days extra early to get there and get set up. But what are you going to be doing there? What can folks expect? Where can they, we mentioned the booth, 2566, 2566. One more time, Suzanne, what was that booth number?
2566. I'll put in the show notes for everyone too.
But what can folks expect? What do you got going on?
Yeah, so we'll be at the booth. You can come meet us if you haven't already seen us there, or just come by and chat with us. Like Matt said, we're going to have that little secret that we will reveal there, and then of course we do have some playtests games of Sprocketforge and Stifling Dark that'll be going on as well. But if you want to just come take a look, we'll have that. I think we're going to have the Metal Gears there too, if you guys want to take a look at those.
We will be stopping over there. Even if you didn't have the Metal Gears, we'd stop by, but...
Yes, obviously.
I will say the pictures don't do them justice. They look even better in person.
The sound of them rotating is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Click, click, tink, tink.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
But you guys, so I imagine you're going to be extremely busy with your booth, with all these games that are getting played of your titles. You won't have any time for playing games or hanging out and having fun, will you?
We'll see. I think we might be able to get away a little bit. We do have some helpers at the booth, so we might be able to wander at sometimes.
We've kept our evenings free this year as well, so that'll be nice.
I suppose you need the evening free just to get your voice back so you can talk again the next day.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say, from last year's GenCon, one of our highlights of the show was first day, Wednesday. We're out in the whatever the
Beer garden.
block party area, and I think we posted a picture to our social media or something with having a beer or something out there, and that's where we were. And so we're just sitting there, and the next thing I know, I think Suzanne, you saw them because you were facing that direction. I turn around, and there's the whole crew, Sophisticated Cerberus in all of their glory, and we got to meet you, and that was like a really big highlight for me because I didn't think anybody would come and hunt us down or find us, and I'm sure we just happened to be kind of close to wherever you guys were, but that was super special, and I wanted to mention that, and I want to mention that more because those kind of magic moments happen at a convention like GenCon, as big as it is, all of the time for folks. So make sure you take the time to swing by and say hi to the Sophisticated Cerberus team, check out their games, because this is a set of gentlemen that are some of the coolest dudes you want to know in the gaming industry as far as we're concerned.
Yeah, it's great to see you guys too, because we talk so often, but we never actually met you in person. So it's great to meet you guys. We're looking forward to it again in a week. But I think we always love, that's probably our favorite part of conventions, is having backers come up and just talk to us about, say like, hey, this cool thing happened in my latest game of Stifling Dark. Like the adversary jumped through a window and ended the game, or we rolled a 6 on the truck and we got out right before we died. Like we love hearing those stories of the backers playing our games and just seeing like that's something that we created. It's still weird to think about. Like we created this game that people are playing. It's still, even though it's been out there for like a year now, it's still really weird to just hear that happen. So we always appreciate when people come up and talk to us. Like we're happy to chat with you guys, sign your game if you have it. Like whatever you're gonna do, we're happy to meet people.
Extend that a little bit further. What was that feeling for you guys that first time you walked into a game store and saw a copy of the Stifling Dark sitting there on the shelf?
I fangirled a little bit. Had to take a picture. So Games by James here is one of our local big game stores. They've been super supportive, as has a couple of stores like Boardlandia back in Appleton where we're from. So it's really cool to just walk into stores that like we went to as kids or growing up, and all of a sudden a game that we made is on the shelf. It's still, again, it's a really weird feeling, but huge kudos to them and the rest of the game stores that supported us, because we love going to those stores, buying games up. Matt and I and Ethan, we all have way too many games ourselves, but we gotta support those our retailers. So they're great places, great people. So make sure you stop on by and thank them and pick up some games.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so circling back to Sprocketforge for a minute, we said it is on Kickstarter right now. Hopefully if you're listening to this, How long is it going to be on Kickstarter again? Till August?
August 15th. Yep.
When is August
3 p.m.
15th? So,
Central, to be specific.
okay. So people could come and see you at GenCon, look at Sprocketforge, and then turn around and just back it right then.
They sure could.
So that's pretty cool. Like, that's great timing to be able to do that. See it in person, back it. How long do you anticipate the production and being able to get the game into the hands of backers will take? Do you have a clue? Do you have a general timeline yet?
Yeah. So we as with Stifling Dark, we're trying to be careful with our timing because I mean, we've all back Kickstarters that were months to years late. So we're happy we delivered Stifling Dark a couple months early. We want to do the same thing again with Sprocketforge if possible. But right now we're saying June of next year is our kind of estimated timing. Again, if all goes well, it should be a little sooner than that, but we would rather just be safe in case like there's some shipping fiasco that happens or something. But we plan on starting manufacturing shortly after the campaign, probably in the September-ish timeframe, and then getting it out prior to Chinese New Year in February. So,
Nice.
I should say shipping it from China prior to Chinese New Year, not delivering it in February, just to be clear. But yeah, June of next year is our estimated delivery date.
Nice.
Awesome. They'll be looking forward to that. That'll be just in time to start next year's con season. Origins, GenCon, all the other fun. Perfect timing. All right. So let's knock on wood and hope that actually delivers a little early because we're really excited to get our copy. Was there anything else that we missed or didn't think of that you wanted to talk about regarding Sprocketforge? Maybe some tidbit that gameplay or the campaign that you're really excited about?
Let's see. Oh, I don't think we mentioned the factions and advanced mode of Sprocketforge. So the core game, the base game, is much lighter. Very easy to get into. But it will have an advanced play style where each faction has like unique abilities. We love our asymmetry over here, a Sophisticated Cerberus. So any game that has factions all over it. So we wanted to put that in Sprocketforge as well. So we are working on a way to flip your enchantments over so they get more powerful and have unique faction abilities that can trigger stuff like that. That'll really give you some good strategic play going on.
That sounds great. We like our asymmetric abilities over here too. So, anything else?
Yeah, I would say it's really cool to have the option to play it kind of base and then just simply flip a component over, and now you have a completely, not necessarily different game, but different play style and different strategies that can be added into it. So just when you think you've mastered it, aha! You have a completely new game experience for additional replayability. That's awesome that you're including that.
Definitely. We're very excited to bring it to the table.
I think as we close this out, I want to just hint or let folks know that you can head on over to Kickstarter.com and find this, but we're going to make it easier for you to find it. So if you just pop over to the show notes at wiscodice.com. What's that website, Suzanne?
Wiscodice.com.
Yep, that is correct. Wiscodice.com. We will have links directly to the Kickstarter in our show notes, as well as links to where you can purchase the Stifling Dark. So if you want that as well, you can just go ahead. You'll be able to get to it right away. That's assuming you can't get a copy through your friendly local game store, because we do recommend to always shop at your friendly local game store and support them. Heaven knows they need to have something to sell and keep the doors open on. But you can also, if you happen to be at GenCon, you can swing by booth 2566 to get a preview of Sprocketforge, pick up your own copy of Stifling Dark, or bring your copy in and get some signatures, talk to Sophisticated Cerberus. They're absolutely great and wonderful to talk to about all sorts of things, their games or other games entirely. We've had some great chats about other games too. I think we're going to call it a show. Thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate it. Peace out.